Component 2, Section A, TV genre, crime drama. In this section of the exam, the focus is primarily on the BBC crime drama Luther, but you will also be required to discuss the 1970s ITV crime drama The Sweeney, as well as Luther for the industry question of this section of the exam. You only need the clip shown in class to help you answer the question, whatever that might be. The focus on the question will undoubtedly require you to discuss the differences between them. You will have a good understanding of the times in which Luther was set, but might not know much about the 1970s since you weren't alive then. This video aims to give you a broad view of what Britain was like in the 1970s and how this influenced the production of The Sweeney as a TV programme. In the 1970s there were only 3 channels, BBC One, BBC Two and ITV. Sky TV nor cable were invented yet, so anyone in the UK was forced to watch either one of just these 3 channels. This meant that the audience share for each channel was quite significantly big because they did not have to worry about the vast number of channels we have today. ITV, short for Independent Television, was a channel set up in 1955 and was the first commercial channel available. This meant that its funding came from selling advertising space between broadcast of its programmes. The BBC have never needed to do this since it is funded by TV licence money every household needs to pay throughout the UK. As a commercial channel, its focus at first was on easy-to-watch shows like game shows. Indeed, the term soap opera came from the fact that the commercial channels like ITV sold ad space to laundry detergent ads during soap operas like Coronation Street, which has been broadcast on ITV since 1960. A TV show like The Sweeney could be argued as a typical ITV product for a number of reasons. The most important of which was the fact that it was the first British cop show which had the same excitement for audiences as American cop shows such as Kojak. Whereas typical British cop shows generally focused on polite bobbies dealing with petty crime, American cop shows had tough cops fighting tough villains on city streets, along with exciting stunts, fights and car chases. The producers of The Sweeney saw how popular these programmes were and decided to make a homegrown British version, of which The Sweeney was the result. The Sweeney is really a product of its time and could be considered as a politically incorrect TV show by today's standards. Indeed, when shown on TV these days, episodes are often cut for both sexist and racist content. The sad reality was that in the 1970s, people with power, such as TV executives and indeed their audience, were often themselves sexist and racist. If people got offended by sexist or racist content on TV, they were often just ignored and made fun of as people whom couldn't take a joke. The clip from the show used in class highlights the casual sexism that was depressingly mirroring the same casual sexism that could be found in British society at the time. Women did not have the same rights as men until the 1970s and were often treated like second-class citizens in Britain. In 1975, when The Sweeney was first broadcast on TV, the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975 was passed. This law meant that, technically at least, women could no longer be discriminated against in terms of employment, training, education, harassment, nor buying and owning products. The freedoms enjoyed in Britain today are a result of this very important law. However, back in 1975, the law was very slow to being implemented in wider British society. For instance, as reflected in the scene shown in class, women were still seen by the majority of men as just eye candy and not taken seriously. It is very telling in the scene we watch in class that the aptly named Stupid, the garage worker, is seen spouting sexist remarks about women, with neither the show itself nor any other character making it clear they do not share his views. The depressing fact was that most men actually did share these views. In a more modern TV show, a character like Stupid would no doubt be made fun of or even told off by another more enlightened character. His remarks in the scene concerning how women love having men make love to them, albeit expressed in a more crude way, add nothing to the plot, and so they are even more interesting because of that. This is because that, without meaning to, the TV show acts as an unwitting witness to the younger generations about the shameful historical inequality of women's rights in the UK. Though there is no requirement for you to discuss other media texts during this question, it would perhaps be useful to consider them nonetheless to give you a broader understanding of the sexism that was once acceptable both in British society and TV during this time. A good example would be to consider another very popular TV show from the time, The Benny Hill Show. This TV show is rarely shown on TV these days simply because its sexism is so much part of the so-called humour of the show itself. The comedy sketch show generally involves scantily clad women being lusted after by Benny Hill, a middle-aged comedian. That's basically the entire premise of the show. Both The Sweeney and The Benny Hill Show belong to different TV genres, but are both examples of 1970s British TV shows which reflected the accepted sexism of the times in which they were made. Another point to consider is the violence in the Sweeney, since in the scene shown in Class, the main cop character, Regan, threatens the suspect with violence unless he gets information. Again, unfortunately, many police officers in the 1970s often assaulted suspects and mostly got away with it. Britain had a tradition of respecting policemen and naively assuming that policemen more than anyone followed the law to the letter. This all changed in the 1970s when, prior to the Sweeney being made, many police officers were themselves found guilty of corruption and brutality. The main characters in the Sweeney, Regan and Carter, are often violent but are notable in the series as not being corruptible. In other words, they refuse to take bribes from criminals. This was acceptable to the public in the 1970s, whereas today both these characters, if real, would certainly be fired from the police. Britain in the 1970s was a time of positive change, and this unfortunately caused a lot of violence to society from those whom opposed this change. The aggression in the Sweeney could be argued as being part of this resistance to change in British society.